You gonna sit next to me, Mr. Blue Steel? He's so cute. I love him.
That's good. It's good to love your animals.
It's true, even when he wakes me up at 4 a.m.
Welcome to Stargatesing, a Stargate gazing podcast. I'm your host, Mary.
And I'm your other host, Kathy.
And each week we review an episode of Stargate alternating between SG-1 and Atlantis.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am fine. How are you?
I am also fine.
Fabulous.
It is fabulous. I think that's pretty good.
I agree.
Yeah. How's things?
Very busy. It's been
What?
a rough week because I was doing that conference thing last week. That meant that I was behind all week this week. And
Oh, no.
it was rough.
I'm sorry.
Catching up. I still, even though it is currently Saturday, need to do more work stuff tonight and tomorrow, but almost there.
Did you make it to games?
I did make it to games. I
Yay.
at least got the bare minimum of stuff done yesterday that I absolutely had to have done yesterday. So I was able to go play games with friends.
Awesome.
Indeed.
I did not make it to games.
Clearly.
Yes.
I didn't think you were there. It would have been hard to miss a sixth person.
That's true. Yeah.
Indeed. I did some grading exams this morning.
Ooh.
And that was exciting. I was actually even grading exams on the way to games.
Oh, my God.
So I had wanted to have the exams all graded yesterday, but that did not end up happening. But I at least got them done this morning after getting a head
Yay.
start on the way in the car last night.
Nice.
So, yeah, busy week, but fine.
I went to bed early and then slept in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sleeping in sounds nice. I did not sleep in because I had to make sure I got up in time to watch Stargate.
That's fair. I had already done that.
I was about halfway through. That was another thing that I had tried to get done yesterday that I did not manage to fit in the entire thing. But I had watched about half of it.
Nice. I did think about watching it again, but then it didn't happen. I slept instead.
fair. You know who else is having a busy week? Day?
Yeah, not sure exactly what this
Whatever.
timeline is,
I
but
have no idea how much time is supposed to have passed.
I think
no.
not a ton, because the whole thing is they're like practically running out of power all of the time. And
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same day.
Yeah.
that all of this is taking place.
It's a
So
bu-
it's a busy
It
day.
is a busy day.
Yeah, the kind of day where you do grading on your way to do something else.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw Sheppard sneaking in his changes to his employees' evaluations in
Yeah.
the midst of everything.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty sure.
Yeah.
What is this episode that we are talking about where people are all busy all the time?
This is Stargate SG-1. No, it's not. What am I saying?
It is not.
This is Stargate Atlantis, Season 4, Episode 1, Adrift.
The first time doing 2 Atlantis episodes in a row.
That's true.
And also the second to last time.
Yeah. Aw.
The episode starts with a recap. Colonel Ellis comes to Atlantis, but he has bad news about replicators. They're building ships. But it's okay, because we blew them all up with nuclear weapons. But oops, the replicators themselves were not wiped out. And now they're even more angry than they already were. Hiding from the replicator beam does not work, so it's time to head into space. But not before Weir and a bunch of other people get taken out. And now, oops, we're lost.
Oops. Good job.
End of recap.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We essentially pick up right where the episode left off with them trying to recover from these terrible things that just happened.
Yeah.
Dr. Keller and team are rushing Weir to the infirmary. It's not going well. They're preparing her immediately for surgery once she gets there. And then she's crashing, they say. Oh no.
Oh, no! Great.
So Keller tries the climb on top of her ER thing where they wheel her around while
Gurney?
she's doing CPR. Yes, there we go.
ER thing, also known as gurney.
I meant the show ER. That's where I
gotcha.
associate this from.
I see.
But I did not say gurney. You are correct. I did not say what she was on. I was not clear at all.
No. I knew what you meant, but that's because I had watched the episode.
Yes. Elsewhere, scientists and Rodney are trying to figure out why the ship is no longer taking them where it's supposed to go and why they're lost and what they can do. Rodney has finally gotten the sensors back online, it seems. Taylor wants to know if they can contact Apollo, but no, Rodney says they cannot because their communications are down. Chuck Nishin, though, is working on it, he says. Is that the first time they name him in the show?
No, they named him at some point, which is where we got his name. They named him Chuck at some point. Fairly early on, I think.
I thought we got that from, IMDb.
Oh, I don't think so. I thought it showed up in a transcript somewhere, I think.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we got it from a name tag. I'm pretty sure it did show up somewhere before.
Sheppard wants Rodney to work on that communication, but Rodney says he's got bigger problems. And that problem becomes apparent when he starts freaking out that they are losing a lot of power. Uh-oh.
I used to really like the show Lost in Space, and now anytime that I see any show that takes place in space where people are lost, I think about that show.
Me too!
But the robot was a little creepy sometimes, but, I was also 5 when I was watching it.
Yeah.
My computer is the best on Earth.
But enjoyable show. The movie I remember being disappointed by.
I can only vaguely recall the movie. But
yeah, it's got Matt LeBlanc in it, and I liked him a lot because I was watching Friends at the time, but got it being kind of depressing and boring.
All right.
At least that's what I thought at the time. And I've watched it once since then, and I don't think I liked it much better. But I don't really remember. Okay. Anyway, back to Stargate.
Yeah.
Next, we are in the infirmary with Ronan, who wants to yank out the shard of glass in his chest still, and the doctor, thankfully, is horrified and refuses to do that. Ronan seems like he's about to go and do it anyway, but the doctor yells at him, "Are you crazy?" And that's all we get of that. So I'm going to assume that didn't happen because we do see Ronan alive later, and there doesn't seem to be any drama with him having a collapsed lung or, bleeding out anywhere. So I'll assume the doctor was able to stop that. And in comes Dr. Keller with Dr. Weir on her gurney. They transfer her to a regular bed, and they are giving her shocks. I did appreciate that they did at some point say that it was VFib, which is a shockable rhythm. I do like to point this out every time that someone doesn't fuck that up by using a non-shockable rhythm. Then we are back out with Zelenka and Rodney, but they're actually just talking over the radio, so really it's just Zelenka. He doesn't think that the problem that they're having with power or whatever is going on his end where he is in the ZPM room. He just wants to know where the problem is. Zelenka thinks it's in the conduits, so the power is not getting from the power room to everywhere it needs to go.
Unfortunate.
Yes. Then we are in the control room where Rodney is continuing his conversation with Zelenka over the radio, and Zelenka is telling him that several of the main conduits have apparently been affected when they were brushed with the beam. So that sounds bad. They have a few minutes back and forth where they keep saying half sentences and then interrupting each other, and they clearly know what each other is talking about, but we don't because it's just all science and engineering that doesn't really matter because it's not real. Sheppard comes in and asks what the hell's going on, and Rodney doesn't have time to talk to him because every second that he wastes talking to Sheppard, they're just draining more power. So just trust Rodney and Zelenka that they've got things covered here. Out in the infirmary, they're still trying to deal with Dr. Weir. They are talking about starting her on mannitol. I didn't actually know what a mannitol drip was for, so I looked that up. And it is actually a thing that is used for brain swelling, specifically to try to draw fluid out of the brain tissues and back into the bloodstream. So I thought that was interesting.
Huh.
Yeah. And then we are back in the control room with Sheppard and Rodney. And long story short, there's a bunch of systems that Rodney needs right now that they do not have because, again, the conduits are broken, and also there is lots of power being drained, essentially, because of these broken conduits and systems working that they don't actually need to be working. Taylor asks if they can shut off those working systems that they don't need, and so he's got to work on that next. So it just continues to be chaos everywhere. Rodney is getting nowhere. Dr. Weir is still crashing. And even though they've given her her mannitol drip and her shocks, she's still crashing more. They need to give her more shocks. At one point, one of the nurses draws Dr. Keller's attention to the EEG that they have on Dr. Weir, and they realize that her brain isn't doing well, which I was surprised that they're only just now realizing that after putting her on a mannitol drip.
Yeah.
And after Dr. Keller already said her pupils were sluggish, because as far as I know, compromised brain and optic nerves are or not necessarily optic nerves, but compromised brain and cranial nerves are really the only things that would cause sluggish pupils. So maybe Dr. Keller's not as good at doctoring as we would hope. They're going to give her some nimodipine, which I did not look up.
Me either.
Yeah. Yeah. And anyway, chaos continues.
Indeed.
And that basically brings us up to credits. They're trying to get power back to where power needs to be and stop power to where it doesn't need to be. And they're trying to prevent Dr. Weir from dying.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a long opening.
Indeed. Credits.
Credits.
Did you watch the credits?
I did watch the credits, yes. And Amanda Tapping was there, but I was surprised that Jules State was not.
Yeah, I think for some reason I remember she didn't get a full cast credit until like season 5.
Weird.
It is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Also, way to spoil that Amanda Tapping's on the show now. God.
I mean, she's in it later this episode.
I know. I know she is in it later this episode, but she could have been a guest star. That's why I had skipped them and went back because I saw that Dr. Lee was in the credits, and I was like, I know.
Oh, really? Somehow I missed that. Was Dr. Weir in them?
I don't think so.
Oh.
Actually, I can't remember.
Somehow
now.
I only noticed Amanda Tapping and the lack of Jules State.
I should have paid more attention, especially because I'm drawing attention to it. Oh,
yeah.
well.
Well, that's fun. I'm glad that Dr. Lee and Amanda Tapping are here now that their stint over at SG1 is done.
He's not in the main credits. He was in the credits after the credits.
I thought that's what you meant. It was
Sorry.
that he was in the main credits.
That's
okay.
why
I was like, how did I miss that?
No. That would be cool. I would take a Dr. Lee, although I don't know if they need another nerd in this mix with Zelenka and Rodney there already.
Yeah, and now Sam. But I like it. Bring on all the nerds.
Rodney would rip him apart, really.
He would. Yeah, he would. It's true.
Anyway, I guess talk about the show again.
Yeah.
Or the actual contents of what happens in this episode specifically.
Something more interesting than credits.
Yes.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Stargate.
Stargate. After credits, Sheppard wants to have a word with Rodney about the fact that Rodney keeps making a shit ton of decisions without consulting him. And Rodney's like, I'm busy. There's a lot going on. I need to do these things. And Sheppard's like, yeah, but I'm kind of now the boss because Dr. Weir is incapacitated. And Rodney's like, oh, right. Oops. So he starts to give he says Cole's notes and then changes it to Cliff notes.
Are Cole's notes a Canadian thing?
That was my guess and I forgot to check.
Same.
Cole's notes are student guides to literature, published in Canada.
But I feel like that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
He explains about the power conduits not working properly, that not enough power is getting to the systems they need because a bunch of stuff is on and is draining all the power, and they're working on turning all the shit off so they can take care of that problem. He likens it to leaky pipes, which Sheppard then gets mad and says, if you dumb this down anymore, you're going to get hit, which I thought was pretty funny. His gist is that they need to shut stuff down because otherwise they won't have enough power to power the shields and atmosphere, and then they're all going to die.
That's bad.
Can I go now?
He tells Sheppard that the teams he has out there working on this are making good time. They're about 60% of the non-essential systems are already down, but then, we don't have time for this alarm.
Red alarm.
The outer buildings along the city's edge are decompressing and shutting down artificial gravity, reports technician.
That seems bad.
Yeah. Taylor's like, why would it do that? And Rodney realizes that it is to save power. It's going to collapse the shield so the outer parts of the city will no longer be in the protective shield so that it will keep power longer. They're like, crap, we have to get our people who are way out there back. So Sheppard radios down to one of the teams and tells them to drop everything and run. They do. Unfortunately, as we watch them try to run and we watch the depiction on the screen in the control room as the shield collapses and we see door shutting as it follows along, ultimately, these poor guys do not make it.
Nope. They start floating. And then their life signs go away.
Yeah, it sucks because they had enough time to be like, we lost gravity, and then they die.
And then they died. It's pretty grim.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Sheppard tells Rodney to tell everyone to hurry the hell up. We're not going to lose any more people, please. Things are not great.
They are not good.
But they get better eventually.
They do. I did look up the Coles Notes while you were talking, by the
okay.
way. And yes, they are the Canadian version of Cliff's Notes, which, if anyone doesn't know what Coles Notes or Cliff's Notes are, they're basically very short summaries of lengthy books, essentially, that are intended to get you around having to read whole books in, like, your literature classes in high school and college. And I survived British Lit and various other literature classes by using them.
Despite the fact that many a teacher was like, I'll know if you just read the Cliff Notes.
No, they didn't.
No,
they never did.
No.
They never did. And then, ironically, I went back and read a lot of the books that I was supposed to read but didn't way later and enjoyed them. But I would not have liked them in high school. I wouldn't have been able to appreciate them back
Fair.
then. Yeah.
I do think about actually rereading Wuthering Heights at one point, since I have a raging hatred of that book from reading it in high school. But I don't.
That one is one of the ones I did not read, and I've thought about going back to read it yet, but I have not.
I don't think I will, though, because I just remember hating all the main characters so much I thought that they deserved to die. So
That's fair. I remember not liking it primarily because I didn't like the teacher that I had for the
That's
class.
fair. That is fair. Teachers do ruin subjects for people.
They do. They often do.
Unfortunate.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Sam and Dr. Lee are at the Midway space station. They're doing some sciencing things. They're floating around. They don't have gravity. Dr. Lee is not dealing with the lack of gravity very well as he is throwing up into a motion sickness bag while Sam is doing just fine floating around and doing her science thing. She recommends that he maybe gate back to Earth and get somebody who's not going to be useless to join her, but no, he doesn't want to do that. He'll be fine. He just needs to figure out how to get the gravity back on. Uh-oh, the Pegasus gate just activated. That was unexpected. So Sam floats over to their communication system and gets a message from Colonel Ellis calling in from the Apollo, asking them to respond. And she does. She says that she is at the Midway station. I don't really know why she felt the need to tell him that, because he obviously called into them there, and somehow I missed that anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, she asks him how the mission went. And he says he thinks it was okay. As far as he knows, Atlantis was able to evade the replicator beam and enter hyperspace, but the problem is they never came out of hyperspace where they were supposed to. So he's at the rendezvous point, but Atlantis is not. So that's obviously a problem. Sam is surprised because Atlantis apparently should have beaten them there. I guess they have better hyperspace somehow. But no, they did not meet them there, and they are missing. So Ellis went to the nearest gate to check in with them because there wasn't a gate next to their rendezvous point. So he did have to leave in order to come and call her.
Yeah, he could be missing them right now.
He could. He wanted to know if Atlantis has checked in with them at the Midway point, but Sam says that they have not. So that's bad. That's all bad. So Ellis is going to go back to the rendezvous point and then call her back in about an hour or so if he doesn't hear from them, or sooner if he does. Hopefully sooner. But we know it won't be sooner.
Yeah. Actually, they're pretty smart. They probably left like a ship behind to keep an eye on things.
Probably.
Yeah.
Or beacon, something.
Yeah.
It is the stationary beacon we just released.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Doesn't sound like they were going to be that long if they were going to be able to get
True.
back there and then come back to the midpoint station within an hour.
True. We get a shot of Atlantis showing that the endpoints of the city are no longer covered by the shield.
Nope.
Then we're in the infirmary where Ronan goes to check on Dr. Weir's condition. The person he's talking to, who I don't know.
No, she doesn't get a name.
No. Unnamed
They-
woman.
Person. This doctor doesn't get a name.
Yeah.
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who tells Ronan her brain is swelling, and if it doesn't stop, they're going to have to cut open her skull to relieve the pressure. Yikes.
Yeah.
My God, man. Drilling holes in his head's not the answer.
Trepanning. It did work. That's why it was in use for tens of thousands
Fair.
of years. It was often used excessively when it wouldn't have helped, but it did save many lives also.
Then we are in Weir's office, where Rodney and Sheppard are meeting. Rodney is asking how Weir is doing. Sheppard says she is still in the OR. They have no news. We just learned that anyway. Rodney wants them to collapse the shield even further than Atlantis itself collapsed it and bring it so it was only covering the tower, because they still have not a ton of power left.
No.
It's not good. Sheppard's like, cool, all right, do that then. Make sure all the teams are accounted for because nobody else is dying. Rodney says we're already done. So they do that. And the shield gets smaller. Very exciting scenes.
It was very exciting. It looked pretty funny, though, with just the central tower.
Yeah.
surrounded by this teeny tiny narrow shield.
How much of the outer parts of Atlantis do you think could get destroyed and it still survive overall?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It sounds like they've got a lot of like power generation and stuff in the tower itself, but I don't think that they would have any navigation or ability to fly, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, or steer where they're flying, at least.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But as long as they had enough power, I would think that life support would still survive.
Yeah.
Even in the one tower.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But who knows? That's just a guess.
It wouldn't help, though, if you're in the middle of nowhere because you're all just going to die anyway.
It wouldn't, yes. And that is part of the problem is they need to get more power before they lose their life support systems, let alone their power to navigate anywhere. They do mention a few times here and there. Back in the infirmary, all of the treatments that they're trying for Dr. Weir have not been working, so they're going to go ahead with their trepanning, which is officially called decompressive craniectomy these days, I suppose, at least according to them. I did not actually look it up if that was the correct term, but probably sounds about right.
My God, what is this, the Dark Ages?
We get a scene of them prepping Dr. Weir, shaving her head and connecting her to all different kinds of thingies and monitors, and they're working to get her pressure down in her cranium. And then we are in the control room where there's a person sweeping up a bunch of broken glass. Rodney, Sheppard, and Taylor are all there. Rodney has a little bit of good news. In one piece, at least, he's been able to figure out their exact location, so they are no longer lost in space.
Woo!
That's good. Taylor asks if that means they can use the gate, but no, because they need to be relatively stable in one place in order to be able to actually use the gate, and they're moving too fast for that.
Because we were driving way too fast.
Yeah.
Sheppard asks if they can use their sublight engines to slow down, but no, because the sublight and navigation are out, so that is not an option. Sheppard asks how this constitutes good news then, but I think it's pretty good news.
I think so.
That they're not lost anymore. I agree with Rodney. But the second thing that he's discovered is that there isn't anything wrong with the hyperdrive, so that's good. The reason that they dropped out of hyperspace too early seems to be that essentially the engine stalled out, he said. They had enough energy, they had enough gas in the tank, as he says, but the damaged power conduits meant that it wasn't getting to the hyperspace drives. So they need to fix those before they can get back into hyperspace again. He cannot fix them without them landing the ship and spending a lot of time on it, so he basically has to do a temporary patch that Zelenka is currently working on with a team of people, but they're still leaking lots of power to all of those various other places that they don't need it. They have already cut power to a lot of those places, but it hasn't been quite enough yet. He brings up a diagram that is essentially showing the power levels of the ZPM, and it's draining pretty quickly towards a red line. He points at that and says that that is the minimum amount of power that the city requires to execute a jump into hyperspace. So if they don't manage to fix the conduits before they get to that point, then they're screwed and they're going to die in the vacuum of space. So great.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Going well.
Everything's fine. Yep.
Then Sheppard goes to visit the infirmary. He stops by to check on Ronan, who's laying down. Ronan says he's fine. All the glass is gone. Woohoo! Ronan's like, you need me? Please need me? Sheppard says, no, you need to recover. But Ronan tells him whenever he is good to go.
You did great. Just rest.
Keller comes over to Sheppard. He asks her if Weir is okay, and Dr. Keller says no, she is alive. However, she's had a lot of damage. In addition to her brain problems, she has broken ribs, a punctured lung. Fortunately, no spinal damage, but as we know, the brain situation is the worst. She says that if Weir survives, and it's a big if, she's never going to be the same person again.
Great.
Yeah. And then she's like, I gotta get back to work. So Sheppard is left to stand there and think about how terrible that is.
Indeed.
You know, it's funny too, because it's not funny, but
I was going to say, yes, it's hilarious
so
that
funny.
she's dying.
No, Joe Flanagan doesn't emote a lot on this show.
No,
and it's
he
very
doesn't,
subtle.
but he does here.
But this
Yeah.
look was so good. Like,
It was a very subtle look of just despair,
Yeah.
basically, and so sad, even though he barely shifted his face at all.
Yeah.
I agree.
It was really good.
It was impressive. Then we're back with Zelenka and Rodney. Rodney asks Zelenka how it's going on his end there in the ZPM room with their patch job, and he says that it's going remarkably well, which Rodney is surprised to hear about. They've been cannibalizing parts and crystals from various secondary conduits and other things that aren't currently needed, so he says it's going pretty smoothly. And he thinks that they're going to be done before they drop below that red line that they were pointing out before. And that will hopefully allow them to then go meet up with the Apollo as was originally planned. Rodney is delighted to hear that. Not just delighted, ecstatic, he even says. But then Sheppard and Rodney are called to the control room immediately, and that's always a bad thing, so Rodney's excitement did not last very long. In fact, he says that lasted, what, like a second? So we go to the control room. Sheppard meets up with Rodney there, and the technician says they're going to want to look at this. And, it's an asteroid belt. What that asteroid belt is orbiting around, who knows? Because they're supposedly not near any planets or stars. But there's a random asteroid belt out in the middle of nowhere. And the sublight engines are still offline, so they have no way of navigating around it. They are heading into it. Sheppard wants to expand the shields. Rodney says they don't have enough power. Sheppard asks if they can do that just long enough to get through, but nope, they absolutely do not, because then that would get them below that red line by the time that Zelenka has the chance to fix the issues that he is working on. Zelenka specifically will need 45 minutes to complete those repairs, and they are less than 45 minutes from hitting this asteroid belt. You would think they would have seen it sooner, but I guess
10 minutes,
not.
they'll be there.
Apparently.
Yeah.
That's weird, but here we are. So now they mention that they're in the middle of a pretty big solar system, which, again, I thought was weird because before, when they stopped, they had said they were nowhere near any suns or planets or anything. And this asteroid belt is probably made of remnants of early failed planets. So building size are larger, he's guessing. So maybe fire some drones? But unfortunately, the chair room is outside of the shield, so there's no way that Sheppard can go and get to that. Sheppard's got another idea, though, and he wants to know how many people have the ancient gene. 20 or so, Rodney says, not really paying attention, but then he suddenly realizes what Sheppard has in mind and says, nope, that's a horrible idea, nope. But Rodney doesn't have a better idea, so they're going to call everybody with the ancient gene to the jumper bay.
And they gather these folks who have clearly never flown a jumper.
Nope. One of them flew one twice.
That's true. Sheppard is in the middle of explaining the plan and the situation.
Yep. It was specifically Doctor Who, actually, who had flown a jumper twice.
Oh, Doctor Who. Didn't even mention all of the TARDIS flying, but okay.
No, right?
Yeah.
I think the TARDIS kind of flies itself, though.
Yeah, fair. Sometimes he pulls on levers and stuff.
That's true.
Sheppard explains the situation, that they don't have the power to get through this. They need to stop Atlantis from being hit by building-size rocks. And so they're going to get in jumpers and shoot squids at the giant rocks.
Our delivery squid will bring it right over.
To clear the way for Atlantis to get through safely. No one is comfortable with this.
No. Understandably so. But the choice is that or death, they do point out to all of these people, so...
Yes. Sheppard also says if McKay can do it, you can do it.
Yes. But then Rodney doesn't look too certain either.
Yeah. But that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we get scenes of everybody preparing, mostly focusing on Sheppard and Rodney. Rodney realizes that it looks just like the video game Asteroids, but he was terrible at it. He thinks he scored a 0 once. I don't remember ever being very good at that game either,
Me either.
Rodney. So
yeah.
You're in good company. It was a hard game.
I think so.
Yeah. But anyway, that's it. They all get in their seats, they all fire everything up, and then they head out into this ridiculously dense asteroid belt where there are these giant rocks everywhere. And I was like, this can't be right. These, as far as I know, asteroid belts are not quite this dense. I don't know. Maybe there's exceptions to that, but that did prompt me to look up how close together objects tend to be in an asteroid belt. And according to the internet, it's about 600,000 to 1 million kilometers, which is about 600,000 miles apart. So realistically, they probably could have flown right through the asteroid belt without a problem and without needing all these jumpers. But that's another thing that most sci-fi shows and movies get wrong.
Because it's more fun and exciting this way.
This is true, yeah. So we do get a lengthy scene of everybody flying around and shooting at the big giant rocks and blowing them up with squids. Taylor is in the control room, kind of helping people figure out where the biggest rocks are near them and guiding the different ships in what direction they should be looking in. Sheppard's telling everybody nice shooting. They're all doing a good job. We get lots of exploding asteroids. A couple of them, unfortunately, do make it into the city, but thankfully not too many. Sheppard starts recommending that they maybe double up and fire 4 at a time. Rodney says he cannot do that, but Sheppard's like, just concentrate. Rodney does manage, but he does not actually hit all of his targets. He hits 3 instead of 4, but that still seems pretty good to me.
Yeah. That's a C. That's passing grade.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't check in with any of the other people, really, that are flying, even though there's like 18 other people.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to know what was going on with them, but we don't get to find that out.
Maybe they were better at asteroids than Rodney.
Yeah, maybe. We do get a cool scene of somebody telling Rodney that there is a very large one on his left that is heading right for a building, and he goes after it and manages to shoot it. It doesn't completely break up until it actually hits the building, and Rodney almost hits the building himself, but then swooshes upward. Not that there's really an up in space, but, up relative to the building, and he manages to avoid getting squished by the building. But unfortunately, that blast was felt down in the control room. Taylor and the technician there are a little worried, and the technician's like, maybe it's just smaller pieces getting through. But then there's an even larger boom and explosion. So maybe not so small.
Boom.
Boom, yeah. I understand boom.
But then that's it. They've made it through. Ooh. We see the asteroid belt with a hole in the middle of it that is apparently the path that they've just cleared. And they're just going to double back and pick up any stragglers, Sheppard says, before they all return to the city.
Once they finish their cleanup, they're back in the jumper bay. Good job, guys!
Woo!
Rodney's really excited. He says that was amazing. And great, Zelenka should be all set by now, so woohoo! We can do our thing.
Yay!
But then Sheppard and Rodney are called to the control room again. Which Rodney is dismayed about.
Indeed. He can't have a minute of excitement or satisfaction before he gets called back to the control room.
When they get there, we learn the hyperdrive is offline. And they're like, what the hell? I thought it was fine, Sheppard says. Zelenka says it was, but there were some rocks that did hit us. And a control room array was damaged, and they cannot jump until it's fixed. Womp womp. Since it's outside of the shield, they're going to have to wear spacesuits. They can use the transporters to get close to where they need to go, but they're going to have to do some spacewalking. Rodney says, yeah, it'll be a breeze, except for the micro asteroids. So tiny bits of rock will still be pelting them and the city for some time. Tiny rock bullets, Sheppard says.
Indeed.
Yeah. Zelenka is the one going on this mission. He wants to know why Rodney isn't. Rodney says, Zelenka, you already know all the details. You're fine. And it would waste time getting me up to speed, which does make sense.
It
but
does.
I feel like the implication is like Rodney's afraid to go, which he would always do it if he had to.
Yeah, we've seen him be very brave in the past, so I don't feel like it was just him chickening out. I mean, he was just out in all of the jumpers shooting at stuff, so that was brave.
Yeah, so he's good.
He's earned a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rodney says it's going to take them 15 minutes to do this.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
After they've suited up, however long that takes.
Yeah, and they're like, great, and we just need to get this done before we hit that red line. Go team, go.
Woo.
Yeah.
Break. Somewhere outside the gate room, Rodney is walking around with his tablet Rodneying, and Dr. Keller catches up with him. He asks how Dr. Weir is, and she does not have good news. She's so very far gone that she doesn't think that they have any chance, and Rodney is very disturbed to hear that. That's like the one thing that gets him to pause in the middle of what he's doing. And he asks if she's going to die, but Dr. Keller has one more idea, but she needs Rodney's help for that, and he is confused what he could possibly do to help with any medical issues. But in the infirmary, we learn that Dr. Weir's replicator bits are still there. They were made inert by Dr. Beckett's EM pulse a while back when she had been infected with them, but they're still just hanging out in there. So what if Rodney can bring them back online and repower them? I would think an EM pulse would make that completely impossible and completely destroy them, but I don't really know. So
either.
We'll go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they radio to Sheppard about this, he is horrified to learn of this possible plan. He is, of course, worried about things like them taking over Dr. Weir again like they had before, or communicating with the replicators to tell them where Atlantis currently is to make their many problems that much worse. He thinks it is a very terrible idea. He doesn't think that Dr. Weir would go along with it, and no, he is not going to approve of this, even if that is Dr. Weir's only hope. He knows Dr. Weir would not want them saving her at the risk of losing the entire city and all of the people in it.
That's true.
Yes. So he doesn't want to hear any more about it. Besides, he's really busy with Zelenka right now trying to go and fix shit outside in their space suits. So Zelenka tells Sheppard it's the right call once they end that conversation.
Yeah. Then we're back on the Midway station. They haven't heard from the Apollo yet. Dr. Lee asks Sam what she's working on. Sam says she's trying to figure out how to contact Atlantis. She thinks they probably dropped out of hyperspace too soon. She thinks that's the most likely scenario versus like it blowing up or whatever Dr. Lee was thinking would happen because the ship is hella old.
Yeah. I don't think he thought it would blow up, but he thought that it would like veer way off course, but she didn't think that was likely.
Right. Dr. Lee says he knows how to find them.
It's like the Twilight Bark.
And he says they should call up all the Stargates and that way it'll contact the Atlantis gate and then they can talk to them. Or Sam's like, but if they could communicate, wouldn't they have already done that?
Also, there are people on gate planets that they might not want to be talking to. That they don't want to necessarily be hearing their messages to Atlantis flying in space.
It's very true.
I thought this seemed like a terrible plan. Now everyone's going to know Atlantis is out in space somewhere.
That's fine. Sam shoots him down anyway.
Yeah.
Bad idea, Dr. Lee. So he says sorry. But at least he's trying to generate ideas.
Yep.
Silly Dr. Lee.
Indeed.
Then it's spacewalk time.
Yay.
Yay. They get to the outside point. There's a huge gap between where they are and where they need to be. There's no floor, so they're going to have to jump it.
Fly, you fools.
Also, to remind us, there are rock bullets happening. We do see some slam into a wall and cut holes in it. So dangerous.
You will be firing live ammunition.
Zelenka's like, I can't jump 100 feet. And Sheppard's like, no big deal. I'm going to throw you. I'm going to attach myself to you. And then we'll just float across. We're in space. It's fine.
Going to have to toss me.
I was wondering why he needed to toss Zelenka, why Zelenka couldn't just push off. But
yeah, I don't know. And the physics of this definitely doesn't work out because his logic that if he threw Zelenka, then Zelenka would pull Sheppard after him when the cord got tight enough. That doesn't work. Equal and opposite reactions. Basically, yes, Sheppard would be pulled forward off of the platform, but then at the same time, Zelenka would also be slowed down. So they would basically just kind of be drifting there as a result of this.
I don't remember seeing Sheppard leave the platform. If he pushed off too, would that be enough to overcome that?
Theoretically, but it didn't look like he did when they actually showed it happening. It looked like he was just getting pulled along with like absolutely no delay and no effect on Zelenka's momentum when Sheppard was pulled off the platform. So yeah, it was weird. And I don't know why they wouldn't just push off and
But
I would think that would be more efficient because your leg muscles are stronger and going to give you more momentum jumping off than shoving somebody. But here we are.
Well, maybe they had recently watched Lord of the Rings, so
maybe.
Yeah. They were like, it's time to toss this dwarf.
Yep. Exactly.
Don't tell the elf.
And, by the magic of TV, it works. And it's amazing. And they're like, all right, cool, ready to get to work. Awesome.
Yeah. Worth mentioning that they have magnetized boots, and that's how they were able to walk around all over the place. Because I was wondering that for a minute. I was like, how is that going to work, the tossing, if there's enough gravity to be holding them down? But they did specifically mention they had magnetized boots that they were letting go of.
Yeah.
Or that they were demagnetizing, rather. Yeah. And we're back in the infirmary. Dr. Keller asks Rodney how it's going because apparently he's still been working on the nanites despite what Sheppard said. He's figured out how to reactivate them safely, he thinks. He's 100% certain that he can reactivate them and have them put Elizabeth back together, he says. And he is also sure that he has figured out a way to have them not communicate with the other replicators, but the problem is that they wouldn't be necessarily making new cells for her or helping her body make new cells, but the nanites would be replacing her damaged cells so that when they did another EM pulse to make them inert again, she would die because that replaced tissue would not be there anymore, basically.
She'll be more machine than man.
Indeed. So the choice is be part replicator for the rest of her life or die at this point, and they know Sheppard's definitely not going to go for that. Rodney thinks that there might be a slight possibility he can help them repair her actual cells and then shut themselves down when they're done, but that's going to take a lot more time for him to figure out how to program them to do that. So Keller's going to leave him to it. Out in space, Zelenka says what he's doing is taking longer. He's basically just futzing around with crystals, but it's taking him longer than he expected it to because the gloves are, not surprisingly, making it very difficult to work. And then there's more micro-asteroids. One just zips past Sheppard and hits the wall next to him. Then, unfortunately, one goes right through Zelenka's leg. And all kinds of blood starts leaking out of his suit, floating around in little blood globs.
Blood globs.
Yeah.
Episode title?
Yes. I like it. I was going to say blobs, but that's a portmanteau, but it doesn't really convey the meaning. So we'll just stick with blood globs. Back in the infirmary, Ronan is still wandering around. He does have an IV hooked up to him and a bandage over his various injuries, like the main one in his chest. So again, he's still doing all right. Clearly didn't pull out the glass shard on his own. Otherwise, I don't think he'd be walking around right now if he had. He has gone in to talk to Dr. Weir, who is obviously still unconscious, and he says that they said that you can't hear me, but he wanted to go in there anyway and just say thank you for letting him stay here a couple years ago. He doesn't know what he would be doing or what would have happened to him if that hadn't been the case, and it was a sweet scene. I thought it was very nice. But then, unfortunately, she starts to crash. Ronan thinks that he did it, and he looks horrified, but Dr. Keller rushes in and promises it wasn't anything that he did, but he does need to leave so that they can work on her.
Out in space, Sheppard and Zelenka are talking about his wound. It doesn't hurt, Zelenka says, and Sheppard tells him he's in shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I got bitten by a dog really deep in my leg, I was surprised it didn't hurt more than it did when it actually happened.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, body does weird stuff when adrenaline is released. You don't feel pain.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, weird.
Also, Zelenka's got a hole in his suit, he points out. Sheppard has taken care of that with creating positive pressure, whatever. I don't know what that means. That's fine.
It doesn't really... Well, I mean, I do know what that means, but I don't know how he could create positive pressure to hold...
A hole?
A hole in his suit, because, the positive pressure would basically be draining Zelenka's oxygen supplies faster.
Interesting. They should have brought some duct tape.
So, I don't really know what his purpose was in trying to create positive pressure. Also, you could blow out Zelenka's eardrums if you dialed it up too high.
Ooh,
so
fun.
Yeah.
Try popping your ears. Go like this. Mop, mop, mop.
Sheppard's like, let's call a jumper. We've got to get you to an OR. And Zelenka's like, I'm not done. We can't go.
Yeah. I guess the one benefit would be that his suit wouldn't fill up with the blood globs.
I guess.
If they keep blowing out of the suit. I don't know. It really didn't make any sense to me.
It's fine. Whatever they've done, it's enough that Zelenka's not going to immediately die while he finishes the repair.
Yes.
It's the
positive pressure, in case you're wondering, just means that you have higher pressure in one area than another in order to try to control the flow of air from the direction of that higher pressure area to a lower pressure area.
Gotcha.
Essentially.
Elsewhere, Dr. Keller radios Rodney. Look at me not calling him radio.
Good job.
She tells him the bad news that Weir is crashing, and if they're going to do anything, they've got to do it now. Rodney is like, I need more time. Too bad, Rodney. It's got to be now. So they're going to do the thing, even though Sheppard told them not to.
Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun. We're back at the Midway station. Sam thinks that maybe they should try to fly back over the path that Atlantis was supposed to take and see if they can find them, if her guess is correct that they dropped out of hyperspace early. But if they did that, that would take about 1 million years. So they're going to actually need to get on the Apollo to use that to try to do some jumps, and that combined with the long-range sensors will hopefully help them to find Atlantis much faster than if they just used I don't know, whatever jumper I think that they might have there at the Midway station with them. So, that's going to shorten it to 180,000 little jumps. And a very long time, a few years, Dr. Lee says. But maybe they could seriously augment their long-range sensors with some Asgard technology, which we all know that they have now recently gotten.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're going to go take a little trip to the Pegasus Galaxy.
Zelenka finishes the job. Sheppard radios to the control room that as soon as they're inside the shield, they can activate the hyperdrive. But Taylor responds, they can't. They've gone to red. They have not enough power anymore to do it.
Womp womp.
Every triumphant moment is just deflated immediately in this episode.
Immediately doused with some cold water.
Yep.
Then we're back in the infirmary. Sheppard and Zelenka are there. Zelenka is on a gurney so that they can go and take care of his leg. Ronan asks if he's going to be all right, and Sheppard says yes, it didn't hit any major arteries. You don't really have major arteries in your leg, but you do have arteries in there. So Zelenka is lucky. He's going to be fine. He's just lost some blood, but he'll be fine.
Oh, how convenient!
Sheppard tells Ronan that they did fix the hyperdrive, but that they don't have enough power left, so things aren't looking great. And they've only got 28 hours left before the shields fail, so that's also very bad. Ronan asks what the plan is, but Sheppard doesn't know, so he needs to go find Rodney, who happens to already be there. Sheppard is surprised to find that out, and when he goes to talk to Rodney, and also Dr. Keller, who is there, he finds out what they've done, and he is furious, of course. But they say she was dying, like imminently dying. She was about to die if they hadn't done anything. So that's why they did it without waiting for his permission. They didn't have time to wait for his permission. Sheppard is adamant that Rodney deactivate the nanites, but Rodney refuses. And of course, Sheppard doesn't know how to do that. So he calls in an EM pulse generator, which to me seemed terrible because that would wreck everything in the infirmary.
Yeah.
And what about anyone else that might be in here on life support or whatever? It wouldn't just destroy her nanites. It would ruin everything. Before that can happen, the nurse calls Dr. Keller into the room, and Dr. Weir is awake, sitting up in bed, fully conscious. She takes her bandage off, and the nanites have not only given her hair again, but they have given her the exact same hairstyle that she already had before. So that was nice of them.
So thoughtful.
Yeah. She looks very confused. She has no idea what's going on right now.
Why am I drippings with goo?
Which is understandable.
Yes.
And then in come Dr. Keller and the nurse with some full hazmat suits.
So they just decided that they need to wear those so the nanites don't jump into them?
Presumably, yes. I mean, it's a reasonable concern.
There. Yeah. Sheppard is watching from outside on a monitor while they're working on her. Or whatever they're doing now.
Checked to make sure that Sheppard, Rodney, and Ronan and everyone that was in there don't have nanites already before they decided to don the hazmat suits?
Who knows? Maybe. Rodney thinks this whole quarantine thing is unnecessary, and Sheppard's like, no, it is. Shut up.
Rodney is wrong.
Rodney is wrong.
Yeah.
Then Rodney says, our fighting is stupid, so maybe they should stop that. We've still got to work together because otherwise we're all going to die in 28 hours. So Rodney also says he's sorry because they do need to keep working together. And Sheppard accepts his apology. Then Rodney says they should talk to Dr. Weir, and Sheppard says Tayla's in there to talk to her. Oh, okay. Tayla's in one of the suits. Hi, Tayla. Weir doesn't think they should have saved her.
Not surprising.
Yeah. Tayla's like, we didn't want to lose you. We love you. Weir is also as concerned about the nanites as Sheppard is, and calls this whole thing reckless. But Tayla says it was worth the risk in her opinion. Weir, though, continues to tell her it's a bad idea. So, Weir has weighed in. Just kill me. Pull the plug. Bring out the EM pulse.
Destroy the entire infirmary. Bring everything down with me. Yep. But we don't see that happening. We're in the control room next. Zelenka is there. Sheppard wants to know what the hell he's doing in there, but he didn't want to just wait in the infirmary to die, so he brought his crutches and made his way over to the control room to do some work. Zelenka says that they can forget about their subspace communication systems. The main control array was completely damaged by the beam, But he has another idea. He says basically the reason why they can't jump into hyperspace with what little power they have left isn't actually that they don't have enough power to do it, but that it's a safety protocol that the city won't allow them to do it. But he thinks maybe he can bypass that. Sheppard wants to know what that gets them, and Rodney says not much, but Zelenka disagrees. He thinks that they would maybe at least be able to get to a nearby habitable planet. They wouldn't be able to land Atlantis or anything, but at the very least they could put people down on the planet. But there is a chance that the city would be ripped apart as they tried to enter hyperspace, so it's a 50-50 chance, as Zelenka says. So this really doesn't sound like a very good plan.
No, that's the desperation plan. Are they that desperate yet?
Right. Then Rodney remembers an experimental jumper that a while back, when a machine made him even smarter than he normally is, he had been working on. I was wondering why he hadn't gone back to work on it at all or didn't remember this sooner, but in any case, there's a puddle jumper that he was trying to fit with a hyperdrive, and he's pretty sure he can finish it. Sheppard asks if they would be able to make it all the way to the Apollo to at least tell them where they are, but no, they couldn't make it that far. However, there are a bunch of different planets with gate addresses that are within range of how far they could take that jumper. And one of those happens to be a place where they know that there are some ZPMs to spare that they could repower the city with. But that planet happens to be M7R227, and that planet is the replicator homeworld. So Rodney asks Sheppard, "You feel up to a heist?" And then to be continued. End of episode.
End of episode.
Kathy, did you like the episode?
I did. I think it was a good, like, I mean, it gets a little tedious once in a while when we're talking about it, like, oh, yay, we got this. Oh, no, that didn't work. Oh, yay. Oh, no. But while I was watching it, it was fine. Like, there's all these things happening that they're trying to solve, and then things keep getting in the way, and it held my interest really well, and I enjoyed it. Yeah. Happy to see Sam. Happy to see Dr. Lee, even though they didn't do too much in this episode specifically. And I don't know. They probably should have just let Weir die, but also maybe they'd die then too, because they wouldn't think to do this. I don't know. Anyway.
They wouldn't be able to do this, I don't think, if they had.
Very
the thing
true.
that they're going to be doing in the next episode that we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, true. So yeah, I enjoyed it. How about you?
I agree. It was a good episode, even though there was kind of a lot of back and forth conversation about stuff that wasn't really that important, like as far as it being just fake science or fake technology stuff. The sense of urgency with which they were delivering the not really important MacGuffin information still kind of kept it going, like plotline wise or storyline wise. So yeah, I thought it was a very good episode and it was exciting. Yeah. I am glad that they didn't let Dr. Weir just die. I'm not surprised that she was angry at them for doing that, but yeah. But I thought it was a good episode, and even despite some bad science and bad physics here and there.
Yeah. Awesome.
As that's to be expected in a lot of sci-fi shows, I suppose.
Indeed.
But I find it easier to suspend my disbelief for things that are not biology focused.
Fair.
I don't get as rageful for things that are just like physics not working the way that it really should be.
Right.
Although, if it's too egregious, I'll still get angry. But this is like, whatever. Yeah. Still worth pointing out, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's about it.
Want to ask me what's next?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. What's next?
Next is the last episode of Atlantis that we are going to be covering. It is Stargate Atlantis, Season 4, Episode 2, Lifeline, Part 3 of this series. Colonel Sheppard and his team embark on a risky mission to steal a ZPM power module from the replicators, but must rely on a compromised Dr. Weir to succeed. That was TVDB. Over at IMDb, the Atlantis team, along with Weir, and now with the ability to make large hyperspace jumps in only a puddle jumper, must now journey to the replicator home planet to steal one of their many ZPMs to bring the city back to life and finish the journey to their new planet. That was a very bad sentence, but
yeah,
that is how it was written.
A little bit, some of that information you didn't really need to summarize the episode, but
yeah. Yep.
All
it was
right.
weird. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think I'm good.
Thank you so much for listening to Stargazing with Kathy and Mary. Our fully listener-supported program couldn't be done without you. Show your support by telling everyone you know how awesome this show is. Find us at stargazing.space. Reach us by email, stargazing@gmail.com. Find us on social media at Blue Sky. Get some merch, tinyurl/stargazing. And finally, show your financial support at patreon.com/stargazing. Thank you for traveling through the gate with us. Catch you next time on Stargazing with Kathy and Mary.
I'm Mary.
I'm Kathy.
And you've been listening to Stargazing, the end.
The end. Woo. Yay!
But before that can happen, something happens. Hang on.
Oh, yeah.